Welcome back to Sadie's Spincraft. Today is spin and story time, so we're on for chapter 8. I will be plying the sparkly yarn that you've seen being spun in the two previous chapters. So at the end of this, you will see a finished yarn. So let's get to it. Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder, chapter 8. Chapter 8. When I awoke the next morning, Valik's list of poisons was still clutched in my hand. I reviewed the poison inventory until the medic discharged me. Bruised muscles protested every movement as I headed for the door. I should have been happy to leave the infirmary, but my nerves preoccupied me. My stomach felt as if it contained a live mouse, trying to chew its way out. The guards stationed outside the infirmary door startled me, but they weren't wearing Brazil's colours. And I belatedly remembered that Valik had assigned them as protection until I reported to his office. I glanced around to get my bearings, but had no idea which direction led to my room. I had been living in the castle for 18 days, but I was still uncertain of its inner layout. The basic shape of the castle itself eluded me, having never seen it from the outside. The prison carriage that had brought me to the castle had been a square box with air holes. I had refused to peer out like some caged animal. When I reached the castle, I squeezed my eyes shut in an attempt to block out the anguish of being chained, groped, and dragged to the dungeon. I guess I could have focused on potential ways to escape, but I had accepted my punishment when I had killed Rayad. As much as I hated to ask the guards for directions to my room, I had no choice. Wordlessly, they guided me through the castle. One walked in front, the other followed. Only after the lead man inspected my room was I allowed inside. My uniforms hung undisturbed in the armoire, but instead of being hidden inside a drawer, my journal lay open on the top of the desk. Someone had read my impressions of poisons and other information. The queasy feeling in my gut was replaced by a cold, hard sensation. The mouse had died, reflecting my sour mood perfectly. I suspected Valik. He was bold enough to have gone through my personal papers. He had probably even reasoned that it was his duty to make sure I wasn't plotting something. After all, I was just the food taster and not entitled to any privacy. Grabbing the journal and uniforms, I left my room and headed for the baths. The guards waited outside while I soaked in the water. I took my sweet time. Valik and his test could wait. I wasn't going to carry out his orders like some idiotic drone. Chased by Brazil's guards, finding poison in almost all of my meals and being wagered on like some damn racehorse didn't cause me to be as angry as I was about Valik reading my journal. Arriving at Valik's office, I cut off any smart remark he could make by demanding, "Where's your test?" Amusement touched Valik's face. He rose from behind his desk, sweeping his arm with a dramatic flourish. He indicated 2 rows of food and drinks on the conference table. Only one of the items isn't poisoned. Find it, then eat or drink your selection. I tasted each item, sniffed, gargled, held my nose. I took small bites. I spat. Some of the food had grown cold. Most of the meals were bland, making the poison easy to spot, while the fruit drinks masked the poison. Finishing the last item, I turned to Valik. "You bastard. They're all poisoned." What a nasty trick. I should have suspected he would pull a stunt like that. "Are you sure?" "Of course. I wouldn't touch anything on that table." Valik's gaze was stony. and he walked towards me. I'm sorry, Elena, you've failed. My heart plunged into my stomach. The dead mouse resuscitated and began to gnarl holes in my gut. I searched the table. What had I missed? Nothing. I was right. I challenged Valak to prove me wrong. Without hesitation, he picked up a cup. This one is clean. Drink it. I remembered that cup. It was laced with a bitter poison. Valak's hand wavered a bit. He sipped. I bit my lip. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was the cup next to it. Valak held my gaze as he rolled the liquid around his tongue. He spat. I wanted to jump, to cheer, to dance little circles around him. Instead, I said, "Blackberry poison." "Yes," Valak said. He alternated between examining the cup in his hand and absent-mindedly staring at the rows of cold food. "I passed?" He nodded, still distracted. Then he walked to his desk and he gently placed the cup down. Shaking his head, he picked some papers up only to put them back unread. "I should have known you would try to trick me." My heated tone drew his eyes. I wished then I'd remained silent. "You're all fired up, and it isn't because of the test. Explain yourself." "Explain? Why do I have to explain? Maybe you should explain why you read my journal." There, I'd said it. "Journal?" Valak looked at me in amazement. "I didn't read anything of yours. But if I had, it would have been within my rights." "Why?" I demanded. An incredulous look settled on Valak's face. His mouth opened and closed several times before he was able to voice his thoughts. "Yelena, you confessed to murder. You were caught straddling Rayad's body with a bloody knife in your hand. I searched your file for a motive. There was none. Only a report that you refused to answer all questions." Valak stepped closer. He lowered his voice. "Since I don't know what motivates you to kill, I can't predict you. I can't predict if you'll do it again or what might set you off. I'm bound by the code of behaviour. So I had to offer you the choice of becoming the new taster." He drew a deep breath and continued, "You'll be very close to the commander on a daily basis. Until I can trust you, I'll be watching you." My anger leaked away. Why should I expect Valak to trust me when I didn't trust him? My composure returned. "How do I win your trust? Tell me why you killed Rayad." "You're not ready to believe me." Valak averted his gaze to the conference table. I covered my mouth with my hand. Why had I used the word ready? Ready implied he would believe me at some point. Pure wishful thinking on my part. "You're right," he said. "We seemed to be at an impasse. I passed your test. I want my antidote." Roused into action, Valak drew a dose, handing it to me. "Now what?" I asked. "Lunch. We're late." He hustled me out the door. I gulped the white liquid as we moved. As we neared the throne room, the noise of many voices speaking at once echoed through the halls. Two of the commander's advisors were arguing. Officers and soldiers clumped behind the two advisors. The commander leaned against a nearby desk, listening intently. The group debated the best way to locate and recapture a fugitive. The right side insisted upon using an oversupply of soldiers and tracking dogs, while the left claimed that a few clever soldiers would work. Brute force versus intelligence. The exchange, while loud, lacked anger. The guards stationed around the room stood relaxed, surmising that this type of debate was common. I wondered if the fugitive was a real person or just part of a hypothetical exercise. Valak moved next to the commander. I stood behind them. The debate made me squirm because I couldn't help imagining myself as the poor soul being hunted. I pictured myself running through the woods, out of breath and straining to hear the sounds of pursuit, unable to blend into a town because a new face would alert the soldiers on patrol, border soldiers whose only job was to watch, who were familiar with the town's inhabitants. Every citizen in the territory of Ixia had a specific job. After the takeover, everyone had been appointed an occupation. A citizen was allowed to move to a different town or military district, but proper forms were required. A completed transfer request needed approval from the supervisor and proof that the position was being held at the new address. Without the proper documents, a civilian found in the wrong neighbourhood was arrested. Visiting other districts was acceptable, but again, only as long as the proper papers were obtained and shown to the soldiers on arrival. While working in isolation with Brazil and Riyadh, I had obviously thought about escape. Thinking of freedom, I had been better than dwelling on my life as a laboratory rat. With no family or friends outside the manor to hide me, though, the southern lands were my best option, assuming I could penetrate the well-guarded border. I had created elaborate fantasies of stealing away to Scythia, finding an adoptive family and falling in love. Corny, sentimental rubbish, but it was my only elixir. Every day, when the experiments began, my mind would focus on Scythia, finding bright colours, loving gestures and warmth. Holding those images in my mind, I endured Riyadh's tests. But even if I had been given the opportunity to escape, I don't know if I would have seized it. Although I remember nothing of my birth family, I did have a family living within the manor house, the other lost children, who had been taken in, my sisters, my brothers, my children. I learned with them, I played with them, and I took care of them. How could I abandon them? To think of May and Cara taking my place was too much to bear. I bit on my finger until I tasted blood, and I dragged my thoughts back to the present. I had escaped from Brazil. He would leave the castle in 2 weeks and return home, probably to the next round of experiments with a different laboratory rat. Where am I? My heart went out to her, whoever she was. Brazil was brutal. She was in for a rough time, but I had saved her from Riyadh. Pulling my hand away from my mouth, I inspected the bite mark. Not too deep, it wouldn't scar. I traced the network of similar scars that covered my fingers and knuckles. When I looked up, I caught Valak staring at my hands. I laced them behind my back. The commander raised his hand. Quiet descended in an instant. Excellent points from both sides. We will put your theories to the test. 2 teams. Pointing to the 2 main debaters, the commander said, "You'll be the captains. Assemble your team and organise a plan of attack. Recruit as needed. Valak will supply a fugitive from one of his men. You have a fortnight to prepare." The noise level rose as the commander headed toward his office with Valak and I close behind. Valak shut the office door, muffling the commotion. "Is Marek's escape to Scythia still bothering you?" he asked. The commander frowned. "Yes, sloppy work, that pursuit. Marek must have known you were in MD8. You really need to train a couple of protégés." Valak looked at him in mock horror. "But then I wouldn't be indispensable." A quick smile graced the commander's face before he spotted me lingering in the corner. "Well, Valak, you were right about this one. She survived your test." Then to me, he said, "Come here." My feet obeyed despite my hysterical heart. "As my official food taster, you're to report to me with my breakfast. I'll give you my daily itinerary and expect you to be present at each meal. I will not accept tardiness. Understand?" "Yes, sir." He glanced at Valak. "She looks fragile. Are you sure she's strong enough?" "Yes, sir." The commander appeared unconvinced. His golden eyes tracked from me to Valak as he contemplated. I hoped with desperation that he wasn't looking for an excuse to fire me. "All right. Since I missed lunch, Valak, you will join me for an early dinner. Yelena, you start as my food taster tomorrow morning. Yes, sir, Valak said, and I said in unison. We were dismissed. We returned to Valak's office to gather my extra uniforms and journal. Valak escorted me to his living quarters, located in the central part of the castle. As we travelled to the main hallways, I noticed that the bright areas of stone on the wall outnumbered the darker zones. A vast array of paintings must have been taken down. We also passed several large colourless rooms that had been redesigned as either offices or barracks. It occurred to me that the commander's functional style and stark standards had robbed the castle of its soul. All that remained was a dead stone building resigned to purely utilitarian purposes. I was too young to remember what life was like before the takeover, but I had been taught in Brazil's orphanage that the monarchy had been corrupt and its citizens unhappy. The takeover had been just that. To call it a war would be inaccurate. Most of the king's soldiers had switched loyalty to the commander. They had been disgusted with promotions based on bribery and blood ties instead of hard work and skill. Orders to kill people for minor infractions because a member of the elite was angry caused sour feelings among the men. Women had been recruited to the commander's cause, and they made excellent spies. Valak assassinated the key supporters of the king. When the king tried to raise an army to fight the commander's army, he had no defenders. The commander captured the castle without a fight. A little blood was shed. Most of the nobility had been killed, but a few had escaped to Sitia. Valak and I arrived at a pair of massive wooden doors guarded by 2 soldiers. Valak spoke with the guards, instructing them that I was to be allowed access as needed. We entered a short hallway with 2 doors on opposite sides. Valak unlocked the door on the right and explained to me that the other led to the commander's apartment. Valak's living quarters turned out to be an expansive suite of rooms. Coming in from the gloomy hallway, I was struck by the brightness of the main L-shaped living area. Windows as thin as a tiger's stripes allowed sunlight to pour in. Piles of books occupied every corner and tabletop. Hand-sized grey rocks streaked with white and multicoloured crystals were scattered throughout. Small black statues of animals and flowers glittered with silver. The statues dotted the room, delicate and intricately detailed. They were similar to the panthers on Valak's office desk and were the rooms only decoration. A considerable collection of weapons hung on the walls. Some of the weapons were old, dust-covered antiques that hadn't been used in years, while others shined. One long, thin knife still had fresh blood on the blade. The crimson liquid gleamed in the sunlight, causing a chill to snake through my body. I wondered who had been on the wrong end of that blade. To the left of the entrance was a stairway. The 3 doors lined the right wall of the living area. Valak pointed to the first door on the right. That room is yours until Brazil leaves the castle. I suggest you get some rest. He picked up 3 books from the end of the table. I'll be back later. Don't go out. I'll bring you your dinner. Valak left, but then came back before the door shut. Lock the door behind me. You should be safe here. Safe, I thought, turning the bolt, was the last thing I could ever feel here. Anyone who knew how to pick a lock could sneak in, grab a weapon, and have at me. I examined the swords on the wall and sighed with some relief. The weapons were anchored securely. I tugged hard on a mace just to be sure. The clutter surrounding my door was thicker than around the other 2. and I discovered why when I entered. Clean box-shaped areas were outlined by thick dust that still coated the floor, bed, bureau and desk. The room had been used for storage. Instead of cleaning it, Marg must have just moved the boxes out and considered her job done. Marg's minimal work was not so subtle hint of her vast dislike for me. Perhaps it would be best to avoid her for a while. Inside the room, the bedding was filthy. A musty smell permeated. I sneezed. There was a small window, and after wrestling with the shutter, I managed to open it. The furniture was made of expensive ebony, intricate carvings of leaves and vines curled down chair legs and across drawers. When I wiped the dust off the headboard, I uncovered a delicate green garden scene with butterflies and flowers. After I stripped the bed of its dirty sheets and stretched out on the mattress, my impression of Marg as a harmless grump with a grudge evaporated. At that moment I saw the message had been written in the dust on the desk. It read, "Murderer, the noose awaits." So I'm just adding a little bit of extra talker here because I either speed it up too much and it's not enough. Well, anyway, we'll just leave it at that. I'm finishing, just coming up to finishing the yarn. You can see the top two are running out, and I'm going to have to turn the third one into a chain ply. Here it is coming off. I'm just going to twist it up. I do love it. I really need a name for it though. Really need a name for it. It's so pretty. Anyway, I'll leave you to it. Told you this book were good. Oh! And anyway, did you like that yarn? I did. I'm going to show you again. Look at it. It's all sparkle. I wanted a mallard duck kind of, but no. But it has got the green, the midnight blue, the black, the grey, the navy, and it's even got tencel running through it. I think it's tencel and a lot of Angelina. But oh, I love it. And it is Border Leicester. Quite like Border Leicester. It's not too coarse, but it's also not, don't play, I weren't meant to press that. But it's also not super soft. I could get away with it round neck. So yeah, there we go. If you have a name, if you can think of a name for this, please comment below, because I just, if it had more pinks and purples in, I'd go with Aurora, but it's just green, blue. It's all the darks, but it is gorgeous. So pretty. True 3-ply. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the new subscribers, and I really do appreciate all my returning subscribers. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget, hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, opposite way around, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you might get there. So no matter where you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening or night time, I want you to do what you love doing. Bye, my beautifuls. Love you so much.